video the other day and I shared it with her. And, something I've been noticing is that with what has been going on in Europe has been affecting the supply chain. And a lot of people, even when you look at the astrology, you don't want to jump onto somebody's channel and insult them because everyone has different belief systems. Some people believe in astrology, some people believe in psychic mediums. And so just being really careful about not projecting your belief systems onto people, but also attempting to with, your feeds are curated. So, and especially here in Australia, we can directly view YouTube, but with certain videos, we directly have to log in to see them. So it does end up being that you have a saturated, curated kind of feed. You really need to push the algorithm to a point where you directly can see something you are interested in or seeking. So, with a lot of the feed, uh, and tell me if this is something you directly have been experiencing. I'm sitting out the backyard. I will actually turn the camera around in a moment. But at the moment, it's a black screen, but it won't remain that way. So one of the things that I've noticed is, could it be? How could I explain it? Sensationalized content. Is it sensationalized content? Is it, what's the one thing that triggers the most views? Is something that is inciting fear, something that is inciting, um, you know, uh, statement pieces to provoke you, so to speak. And this is a triggering time. This is a time where, it would be very easy for somebody to trigger another person. It would be very easy for us to go down the rabbit hole. I have actually listened to some very varied content, both from specialist perspectives, economists, etc. And I try to keep my view, looking at the astrology, doing the research, but also listening to other specialists in different fields. And I think that's where you can really get your varied understanding of how ecosystems actually function. Um, I think we understand from 2020 when we had that situation happen, and I did explain in a couple of consults that a lot of what we have been working through over the last few years has been from 2020. And the reason I mention that is because we did have the Great Conjunction. And when we were moving through that, that was the old world. And I think we really need to understand what that was. We were living an old world. We were living in a system that was breaking. So that system with that conjunction point theoretically shattered and broke the old way things were functioning. And, I always look at retrogrades and things like that as great audits of life. And I think, we have had that over the last 4 months, 3 months, I should say. And now we're gearing up to really put on the gas and start moving. It's going to do two things. A, with Aries, sitting in the house of Saturn and Neptune, it's going to be sitting in other positions as well, pretty much from moving ahead. Uh, it structured approaches, intellectual approaches, sometimes having to make decisions without a lot of time. We're cautiously waiting to see how things are going to play out this month. So, although in a day by day it's shifting and changing, we're also looking at our pressure points. And so, in your life at the moment, you may be needing to go, okay, what is working, what isn't? Where are my pressure points? Is it economically? And again, this is not financial advice. Is it in your career sector? And yes, we are going to have changes in career. From 2020, we have. We went from some of us working, out in the field to then, starting to work at home. And, we already saw this really with the transition of Pluto into Aquarius. It was more the essential workers were working and the office workers, the people that didn't need to be there, they started working remotely. And we are moving into air energy. Okay. So we already saw that frequency occurring in 2020. The way we shop, I definitely can say when I go to the shops, I have seen a significant change. And I had been mentioning to you guys that had been here for a very long time with Uranus in Taurus, it has caused radical changes in the food chain, in the monetary system, in your Venusian goods. So it's the things you come to value. You know, Uranus changes it, but you'll have moments where with Uranus and Taurus, it'll be rags to riches, riches to rags, easy come, easy go, big transitions, having to pivot and change. And so for a lot of us, we have been having that, and it's coming to those critical degree points. So we can still be squeezing some juice out of that. And we have learnt a lot from those positions. And so I'm sure for those of you that understand astrology at a basic level, you're probably wandering around the ecosystem of YouTube trying to find information about what that's going to mean. And that's probably healthy, be it you're going into ChatGPT or you're going to an astrologer or you're doing your own due diligence and research to find out what that is going to mean for you. And I think it's pretty important that we grasp when that ends, there is a transition, there is a change. It's going to be moving into Gemini. So, stabilizing yourself might be essential, looking at the weakness points of what you need to address, and then proceeding forward. And just understanding really that with this astrology, we're never going to be completely ready. We're never going to get it completely perfect because it is of the nature of something that is very new. Think of Aries as, it's the child, it's a brand new start, it's the full card into Rory, and it's Mars. So could we at times be running into a fiery situation? We could be. Could we be having to address things so quick we haven't had 2.5 to think? 100%. And some of the blog posts that I did, which is free via the website, I then add a video so that you guys have a bit of a PDF guide while I personally am going through a lot of transitions in my life. So at least you can go to it, it's free. You can jump online, you can subscribe to the website, and you basically gain access to these updates. And one of the updates I did mention that how some of this Mars energy could play out, and one of them already has, and it was a fire on a road. There's a lot of ways and positions it can happen. Now, down the food chain, and back to this video I saw, I think sometimes in the context, do we want to continue putting fires out, or do we want to adjust to a new way of life? And I think this is something we're going to need to actually do. In the interim, it may be that you can only address the situations as they occur, but in the long term, which is Saturn, what we need to understand is it's not just a 2020 situation, okay? Because from there, we have been moving away from that. That's why it's taken so long. And why is this year so important? And it was really crossed, if you had a calendar, you go through in key dates, you'd put a big red box on it. And this is one of those months. So with that, the reason it's quite big is because effectively the planets that had been in the previous cycle sitting in different zodiac signs, as of this month, are transitioning. So we're pretty much getting all the keys in the cog locked in. We have historically seen with Uranus and Gemini, there has been and again, I will say, it does not have to be that the same things happen. Just because we see it in the charts, and then we have to go back in history and look at them and say, hey, that's what's happened previously. One of the previous events was civil war in America. Now, does it have to be that way? No, not necessarily. It could be something different. What's Gemini? It's how you're transported. And already during this month we've had signatures in Australia of that. And we were given with fuel crisis an ability to travel on the train free. And I believe it was in Sydney. They were literally packed like sardines, and there was not enough trains, buses, etc., to transport these people. And so it became sardines in a tin can. And so, why is that good? It's good because when we have this as a simulation, we see the pressure points. We see how we can pivot and rearrange schedules and ways of dealing with things so that they flow more effectively. We might prepare a little bit better. and pivot. But Uranus and Gemini, when I had looked back, yes, we're going to see changes with the transportation system. And this can be at very local, mundane areas. So it can be, okay, how are we driving? We had a particular tax that was on vehicles. Now the EVs potentially are theoretically and potentially, allegedly, I should say, uh, could be having a tax on them, even though it's more electric. So all these changes are as things pop off. So when I look back in history, there was a lot of people that were commuting, sometimes 2 to 4 hours. And I know that is very relevant in England. It's something they've had to deal with for a very long time. And God forbid you get stuck on a freeway and can't get off. You're going to have a long time before you can turn around, and it's not fun. But everything down to your shops are going to change. And I think a lot of us can see that. And so pressure points cause changes. Uranus is ingressing into Gemini. How we shop. Are we shopping online? Are we shopping in bulk? How people shop, what they have, how you are driving. Your driving could change all of a sudden because you're looking at the Bowser and the actual, amount it's costing you. And that's gonna change. That is gonna change, but we are gonna have later on down the track. Next month we're having a full moon in Scorpio, which can link to that. It can also link to tax and debt, legacies, inheritances, secrets, exposures. I'm also having a new moon in Taurus. And these are the two areas I believe this year that are making a big conversation piece. This woman discussed the fact to get 2 weeks worth of food. And on a base level, we all should always have that. But if we were to look at the charts in astrology and to know how things are going, we have a few variations. There's one that discusses a possibility of these cycles wrapping up by the end of 2027. There's other ways, and that's based on the Kali Yuga. Again, go and do your research, look around, and form your own opinion. Again, I would even say people that have discussed the Kali Yuga also are very much like most astrologers looking in at this month, engaging how these frequencies are playing out. So I wouldn't call astrologers ill prepared. I would actually say these are new experiences we haven't seen in history. So very similar to 2020. You know, you need to get new data to assess what that's going to be. And it was funny because I was even looking at Nostradamus and doing some research back when the first book was written. And some of those aspects are similar to what we're dealing with right now. And, it was really, I came across a video and it was a guy talking about what 2026 was, having a chat to the future, very much Adele, hello from the other side. And I'd really been grappling with that. I'd been actually, doing a lot of this insight and research into financial astrology, insight and research into when things can occur with health related subjects, so that I could maybe send a PDF to the future or my grandchildren so they can have that as a reference point. And that's interesting that that came through because when you do look at charts of Nostradamus, you do see the similar subject of the foresight of the future and actually looking at circular situations and that individual wanting to in a very taboo time warn the future of what those things are. Even psychics can sometimes talk script, right? It not even script, it's cryptic. So how those visions can come through to a person can be quite cryptic. Giggle Glimmer actually sent me a video. Oh, no, referenced a video, and I already knew what channel it was. It was from World Astrology, so shout out to them. I absolutely love the channel. He does a fantastic job at what he does. And they had some mediums. And, coming from a psychic medium point of view, one way they could have potentially addressed that is For me, when I landed on YouTube, most of my gift, 100% of my gift, have been psychic medium. And so, initially in the early stages, it would be I would be sitting with that person and I would get channeled messages. Then it morphed and evolved, and it would be people would leave a cup at my door, and I would read that cup. And it was the physical energy. So you're moving each stage with that frequency and pivoting it. So I do believe that some of those things and some of the blockages that were coming through is that you need to just allow the psychic to channel the energy of that time and what is the most heightened subject and keep it pretty simple. And I think that's when you're going to get the more profound psychic messages coming through. Because it did take a bit for me to say, how would I channel a zodiac sign? So, initially it was, how the crap do I channel a zodiac sign? Because I was pushing myself into an area of tarot where I've never needed a physical medium as per se. I've always had the let me sit with the energy, relax into a conversation, and then the flowing of the energy comes through. So the way I trained myself was actually looking at celebrities because I also can read people's faces and tune into that as the zodiac sign. So get maybe 3 or 4 celebrities of that zodiac sign and then tune into those individuals and channel that. And that's how I actually tapped into the psychic energy of zodiac signs. So sometimes the request, the medium as per se, has developed their gifts in a particular area of expertise. And when you're putting too many it's like ChatGPT. It's being trained. You have to train. It's already got the skills. You don't want to baffle those skills. You don't want to block those skills. So what you're wanting to do is just ask okay, I want you to tune into April. I want you to tune into April. What do we need to know about April? um, my intuition says we can be surprised. Are we going to see everything clearly? No. Do we need to dig below the surface? Yes. So, would I do I recommend panicking right now? No, I don't. I don't. And I had said to you guys, don't be sheep, which means don't go down the rabbit hole. If you see something going on, like even in the stock market, for instance, go and read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Go and do some research. And do I think that's totally the basis of what we're going to be dealing with moving forward? Yes and no. No is because we're in a new cycle. Anything pre 2020 is changeable. Um, that's the reason I'm very cautious about Bitcoin is because its um, incarnation was pre 2020. So it's similar to the vibration of what we already left. Now, some of those things, if they were set up and they're very stable, they can last. Some of them theoretically based on the fact that, in my opinion, they were pre 2020 and they were scorpionic in nature when you do a bit of research. Keep an eye on it. Now, Uranus and Gemini can also change that. So we're going to have a lot of temperamental frequency with the up and down. But if you can follow the transits, it's going to give you the cues of where those things can show up. Now, based on this video, the suggestion and recommendation was to go and get food. Was to have 2 weeks of food. And at a base level, you should always have that. But when you do look at the ecosystem, I think when we hear in layman's terms of fuel and diesel, we're thinking fuel and diesel, but you need to become more educated on what your systems in your country actually utilize that for, and not just what your country uses it for, because we are not an island here, we're on the planet. How each country has an interlinking cog in a wheel. Um, I think the main thing that's been discussed has been diesel, oil, fertilizer, but it goes even further down the food chain. A lot further than that. That's like the excrement sitting at the top of the barrel. Go way below. You know, does a country depend on it for power? Does a country depend, and even at a base level, how does your food get to you? It comes via vehicle. And where's Uranus moving? Into Gemini, vehicle. how you transport yourself, how you shop, um, how you fly. I know that there has been a bunch of airlines actually liaisoning together and discussing things, and we are going to have a full moon in Sagittarius next month. So that directly can link to flight and travel and changes. And, is that a bad thing? No, it's not. I think we are living in a world where we're having to constantly evolve. Um, I think most of us are pretty fatigued based around the fact that we have been going through things since 2020. And there can be a lot of fear associated to that. It could be, where are you going to live? What are you going to eat? Who do you trust? Who is the enemy? Who is the perpetrator? And I don't think that's a healthy way. Like, I'm not saying don't feel that. That is a physical, it's an emotion, it's a feeling. Honor that. But it's also, checking your PTSD. Is it actually just pinging out a fear, or is it showing you a truth? And I think that's something we're going to be grappling with at this point in time. I do think a lot more people are of a different nature in this day and age. Are we as far as we need to be? No, we're not. Are we at a place where we need to grasp that we don't want to be going into a situation where we are looking over our shoulders, or not having empathy as a human being, that no matter what, if somebody passes, it's a human being, no matter what, be it we agree with them or not. The other thing is, we're not an island. You may need a dentist one day. You might need a doctor one day. So we've had such a poor relationship since 2020 with the field. Let's be honest. But is it necessary to go to extremes? I think, we were very grateful in 2020 for those individuals that would care for us. On the opposite side of the spectrum, now we have a pushback on that. And I think we need to come to a healthy medium. And I think we need to use our intuition about what is best for us, but also try to have an open mind, with these new chapters we're moving into. Ironically, when you do check up, there is quite a lot of medical breakthroughs, which is something I'd actually said. I have seen some updates relating to Parkinson's and Lyme's disease, breakthroughs with cancer, and that is a positive thing. That is a positive thing that we are having these breakthroughs. So in life, we always have, and this is one thing a spiritual guru said to me years ago: Yildiz, there is light and dark, and it always exists. But we have to have that. It's our motivating force. It's the yin to the yang. You're never going to eliminate one polarity, and if you do, there's no motivation for betterment. But it doesn't mean to say we need to just only see one subject matter. I miss the times where there was positive manifestations coming through in the news, and it talks about some real changes that people were making, and those things are happening right now. But our attention is moving to particular areas based on self-preservation, um, maybe even curiosity or oversaturation of the content. So anyway, I'll swap the camera. I'm sitting out the back in the dark. I have my headset on so you directly can hear me. So is 2 weeks enough? Now there's a few ways it can happen. Um, I do think there is a possibility things could settle down, but one of my suggestions was, don't forget. Okay, you got to look in life as it's a pressure test. So with those pressure tests, what comes up? Where were the weak points in your life? What do you need to pivot with? How can you realign your life so that you can, withstand a blow? Separately, there was one video I listened to, and this individual who was a professional having a chat in an interview said, "How do we prepare?" And he goes, "You can't." And that's the truth. There's some things in a way you're just simply not going to be prepared for. I mean, if the blockchain effectively cracks and fractures, uh, you're then grappling with living on an island, and anything that you were codependent on, and every person in the world, and every country in the world, even America, I'm going to be honest, every single one of us requires another country for a different thing. And, you know, what would they be, even if countries are going broke, the domination of particular industries isn't going to work either. A is because you actually, where does trade go then? There's no trade then. Sometimes I tend to look at the AI revolution and fair-based frequency, and people mentioning that things are going to change very radically. There's a few things I have actually thought about recently. When people look to silver and gold, and they're like, AI is the future. Yes, it is the truth. Yes and no. Pluto's there. Okay, so it's going to change things. Now, there's always a yin to the yang, but in saying that, there's only so much silver, copper in the world, and these potentially do far exceed that. Could that then mean we would have to look to a different way of generating power? Yes, I do believe so. Australia has been quite against certain means of hosting power. And I think it was in the last election we had something that had been brought to the table, which I was actually slightly amused by, was nuclear energy. And it was, and I think some of the biggest fears people do have with it is the cleanliness, how to clean it up, where to store the waste, the dangers of it if it becomes unstable. 100%. But in a breakdown of an ecosystem, back then when it was discussed and a person wanted to come into presidency, that very subject matter had come up. And I said to my husband, I said, it's interesting because the elements in astrology are there. So be it this person has put it onto the menu and these individuals have said, oh, I don't really want that. When you're forced and your way of life changes, you may then look back at that and have to, through maybe having to. And where is the node moving next? It's moving into Aquarius. So, yes, as astrologers, we can look at it and go, oh my gosh, it's going to be something profound. Could be something quite related to energy. These things are a rush to, go and do things. We have people going to the moon. As I said, Pluto and Aquarius is look up and look down. What is going on in different places? What is going on with our space? What is going on with under the water with Neptune? And again, Pluto's something hidden. What is could it be the hidden agenda, as people are talking? Scorpion energy generally is it's very intuitive. So you usually have an instinct, a sixth sense, and you'll look beyond and look at those taboo, yucky subjects that people just don't want to talk about. Um, so yes, energy can change the way we deal with energy. So, tip, what we experience this month, because the nodes are going to shift come June, there's going to be a shift in June. Jupiter's moving. Don't forget, and this circular system of eclipses is 6 to 12 months. What you experienced from the beginning of the year to now, you really need to pay close attention to. And, if it was an air miss or it was a, oh gosh, I've got to pivot, start getting ready, okay? Because you've got 6 to 12 months. That's the cycle of eclipses. Also, the nodes are going to move, so subject matter is going to move. We are going to be moving into that. Is 2 weeks enough? I don't think so. Now that doesn't mean go into the shopping centre and clean off the shelves. Effectively, you have 6 months. What would you need? Um, you're going to need to assess that based on, your country and where you are and what you have. Starting small and having things on hand that you can use. I would say foods that last a long time. I would say maybe some canned goods, definitely water, and looking at alternative sources for power, even at a base level, if it's just to charge your refrigerator or um, the basics of what you need. That's what I would do. What else? Regardless of whether we do or don't go into war, it's the signatures there. There's times where it could manifest at a large level. There's times it could be popping off over the next 3 years. There's another point where we do look even further into astrology with a particular transit, and it could be 3033, 3037. Could it be all the way through? Possibly. Regardless, also Pluto in Aquarius, when I have done research on it, and you look at the ecosystem of the financial sector at the moment, we could also experience a recession or depression. I would rather a recession than a depression, but how can you stabilize yourself? Again, it will be looking at different ways that you can pivot, that you can make yourself actually have something that is yours. It could be a side hustle. It might be putting your resources away, paying your debts down. And, this video was talking about paying debts down. Um, yes, if you can do such. When you listen to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, everything this poor woman said in the video was the polar opposite of what you should be doing. A lot of the rich tend to go into debt to become rich. Now, do your research on that and then see the contradiction of our understanding of what the old ecosystem was and how things were done, and how this person is recommending or being taught to survive in the world. Yes, I do agree with some of the statements this Rich Dad Poor Dad has mentioned. But on the other side of it, Pluto in Aquarius is about it will affect everyone. And we do see, especially in war, we can get very resentful and we can say, oh, the rich did quite well in, World War One, World War Two. We also see, people were actually lining up for bread during those times and they were rich too, and it brought them down to an equal level. So, what does affect us will affect other people, whether they want to believe it or not. We could have the pity party and say that, gosh, we're living in very hard times. But guess what? If you have been living in hard times, you actually effectively have more skills. You have more skills in the animal food chain. You are able to go through adversity. Do we like it? No, who bloody does? But you have more skills to actually be able to survive in the world. Network, it's going to affect your friends. It's going to affect your neighbours. Could we have online at times? We could have outages with the internet. Uranus and Gemini. We could. I'll read some of the comments if I can read it. On the telephone, it's ever so small and it's quite dark out here. Hello. So, anything you guys are doing at the moment to actually, how are you feeling about the situation? Are you only focused in one area? Are you aware of what is happening? Have you had an intuition or a feeling that you need to do something to, get yourself ready and position yourself in some shape or form? How has it been showing up in your life? Do you have, certain countries have been um, probably more equipped to be used to going into action mode over these subject matters. And the crazy thing is, we may literally think things are going to happen in one area. Based on the astrology at a permanent level, no, it's not. So, yes, where you are in your neighborhood, it is going to affect you too because of transits and where they're going, the key play. There can be major key players, but, you know, potentially it's going to end up being, in other areas that is directly going to impact a lot of us. Any questions? Now, does that mean all the astrology is bad? No, no. There was huge, massive breakthroughs, huge innovation in history that happened at these times, huge leaps and bounds for mankind and people. So it's not, we can't just grab into a video and try not to. That's what my suggestion would be. Try not to only go to videos that mention all the terrible things that could happen, because there's, there's, there was one movie I watched years ago, and it was positioned with a girl in an attic, and she was writing during the war, and it was her story of her life. And then I came across another movie, and it was this girl was so isolated from, what was happening, and she was in a beautiful town with a waterfall and living a very different experience, and she had wonderful friends and just a whole different experience. We're all going to individually have different experiences. We have massive entrepreneurs moving through those eras at that time. People that went from rags to riches, and that's Uranus and Taurus. So it's not all one shoe fits all. It's not. Do we want to, what we really need to ask ourselves is, do we want to go backwards? And I don't think we do. One of the biggest questions I also found myself asking myself, I've always been one of those individuals that I just love the planet. I don't really like using chemicals as per se. I, it's this ethical dilemma inside of myself that certain things ethically rub me the wrong way. And that's just me. Okay. That's not, you don't have to be me. But when I was looking at the gold and silver, which I do study, I look at, and the recommendation is always to, if the dollar goes down, you need to position yourself. That's the 101. The other thing is, if that is the platform, and this was something I just thought about the other day, while we're running for a particular asset and hoping to get rich, is it at the cost of the environment? I mean, if we start getting greedy with this shit, the thing that we are going to be having is grappling with the environment. And with Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries, the one thing I can say is all of the placements in astrology I've studied, we had a lot of environmental disasters with the astrology, mudslides. I think there was one that was called the Great Mudslide, and it was like literally just wiped a town out. Earthquakes, volcanoes, wind, because we're in a wind energy, fires. They're things that are going to affect the environment alone without us helping it. And then we go into mining it, and we're grappling with a dilemma that we're jumping into a matrix where we're becoming a cog in this wheel, and it is permission based. So we have to really grapple with our intuition, whether that's something ethically we want to leave behind, in the planet. And it's hard because as much as we don't want that, we have been accustomed to having lights, to having electricity, to having, our air conditioner. And some of us have to have our air conditioner because our homes have not been designed to not have an air conditioner, which, during a cost of living crisis is becoming diabolical, to be able to do that for some people. So it's a catch 22. And I think that's something we're going to be looking at with Pluto in Aquarius and the nodes moving into Aquarius. It's going to be community orientation. It's going to be people, maybe even branching out and working together. Innovation in technology, maybe looking at some codes based on what should be happening with maybe mining or, you know, how we can use resources in a more ethical way. Uh, Finding ways, and again, recycling is going to be massive. Some of these solutions will come down to recycling. I think those companies are going to do bloody well. So it can be recycling, it could be organics. I came across a video that was talking about a replacement for farmers, and it was charging particles inside a water tank to create basically the fertilizer they were going to need through water. And the, most of the evidence was showing that it was actually doing better than the chemical. So yes, we can have breakthroughs with that. But with Uranus moving out of Taurus, yes, there can be disruptions to the food chain. That's one thing. If you have become complacent at a base level, get your garden ready. Get your garden ready. Um, you might have found that the planting of things was a bit stagnant over the last few months. You might not have got as much as you thought you would have, or it might not have done as well. You're going to find moving ahead, especially from this month moving beyond, you might need to look for a bit of a spike in the temperature, and the season might be extended a little bit. But if you can aim to creating something like a wicking bed, at a base level, and start getting that, if you've got something right now and it's what you've got, take it. But also pivot to finding different ways to really making your water stretch the distance, because we can have some, fluctuations in temperature. Now that could change if we have volcanic activity. So expect the temperamental with that one too. However, to me, Saturn restricts things and its retrograde, it opens the gates. But we will see how this actually, plays out. It's in the early kind of stages of it. It's going to be there for 3 years. So if you can find ways to be more sustainable and spend less, why wouldn't you? If you can create small wicking beds, or um, do your research about how to keep the water levels right in your garden so you're not spending as much on water. For some countries, they're having water restrictions. So it's, if you can grow in a desert, you can grow where you are. And don't throw your things out. Be it it's grass or it's your leaves, keep them. Keep them, recycle them, put them back in the garden. You're putting good organic matter back in your garden. Hey. I've been here for a bit, Angela. I was talking about us. I was talking about our chit chat. Uh, the other thing is, could we have, bugs going around? Yes. Look, Uranus in Gemini has been notorious for health-related subjects. So, and Scorpio's there this year. I would just, practice good PPE, keep aware, eat healthy, caring for yourself, and just being being in awareness. Don't go into, oh, this is what I'm really cautious about. We see things in astrology, and I'm going to attempt to be not like other people where it comes across as a criticism. I actually have Saturn and Neptune moving through my third house, so I do need to be careful and try to be mature about how I articulate things. So I'm going to have patience with me. Have patience with me. I will try to be as humble as I can. I'll try to be as mature as I can. Some of us could be communicating more abruptly lately and very strictly. Some of us could be, more assertive. We may need to just wait a little bit as people come online with that. We could be very self-centered, or we could feel very alone, like we're having to do all this shit alone, and it pisses us off. You feel me? So, what do people? So honestly, this video, I was so like, do I say something? Is it appropriate? See, throat chakra. Do I say something? Is it appropriate? How do I go about that? It's not my channel, but I get the concept and the intent in which this human being had made the video, and the intent was to help. And I think that's all we can but do. We can only share from a perspective we've come from, but I think we need to get into the perspective of being open to new perspectives. Do you get what I'm saying? Because what are we? We're the Aries child in astrology now with new perspectives that we might be quite fearful of. Some of them we could be gun ho and jumping into them like they're gospel. Others of them, it's like it could be Neptune in nature. Ah, false. Do your research. I came across a video that was showing a bridge burning, and it was something I'd predicted in astrology. And this person was going, stop spreading fake news. Yet, if you go to a news channel, it was actually on a physical news channel. Now, do I believe it? I check my sources. Does that make sense? Go check your source. Don't just jump to conclusions, which is inconvenient, but it really bumps the algorithm up, doesn't it? What else? Um, Half of the things that people shop for are absolutely stupid. Like they're not essential. When you notice what you actually need is if the power goes out and you're sitting there, it might be like, oh crap, the power went out. And you realize the actual shit you really that's when you're like, you either write that down and you go down to the shop the next day or whenever the power comes back on. I have this habit of actually leaving a bag of ice in my freezer. I also do that in my room, cup in my fridge. So it's an inconvenience because it takes up space. But should your power go out and you're asleep, you semi have a backup to keep that cool so you can either cook your food or you can put an ice block in your refrigerator to keep it cool and keep it going, or you got all that spoilage. Do you get what I'm saying? Buy food that stores. I mean, even in seasonal, over here we're theoretically gearing up ready to go into winter, which I do think we're going to have a bit of an extended season because we are going to have Moon in Scorpio. We're having Pluto will be going retrograde next month. Shadow retrograde, yeah. Um, we're going to have then the full moon, new moon in Taurus, so we could have something to do with the monetary system. Is it a good thing if the interest rates are dropped? No, it's not. It might be for our pocket in the initial stages, but it's gonna affect us later. So it's a catch-22. It's like, oh, the interest rates went down. It's like, yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing. So it's a hard one. It is a hard one at the moment. What have you guys been experiencing though? This isn't just about me. This is about sharing. I went through YouTube last night to find some lives, and I tell you, some people are really interesting. I always used to say trolls are good on YouTube. It shows that your channel's still alive. They could be a bot, who knows? And people do go into fighting with these individuals. I was like, I ain't got time for that shit. I have not got time for that. I've got my own dramas going on. So I will let you all go. I hope. Look, what would you say? I would say a bit of have a secondary source of cooking. It could be some gas or some butane cans so that you could cook your food. Um, Candles, best advice, non-scented. See, I still have some of my old shop candles, and I tell you what, they're going to cause hay fever if you have to use those for power. You want to go the non-scented if you're using them for a long time. Some people can be scent sensitive. And if you're having to smell that for a very long time, yeah, that's not fun. So, you're wanting to keep the air inside the home neutral, especially if you're cooped up in it. So, get non-scented candles. Have some basic water on site. Have some essentials. And yes, build a basic store. And how could that serve you? A, you could use it in retirement. If you store things correctly. B, it could be just really reducing your overhead of what you use on a regular basis. That, looking at alternatives, but looking at how you could maybe purchase it in bulk so that you don't have to keep adding, you've taken one thing off the list at a permanent level because you've stocked up on that one particular area. And no, Australia, I don't mean toilet paper. Still don't get that. I think the notion was everyone's going to be sneezing, so we need a lot of booger rags. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I lived on a farm and it's like, yeah, no, you can't eat that. Can you? No, you can't eat that. Still don't get that. Are we alive? Anyway, I hope this gave you guys some context. Could it ease this month potentially? If it does continue, what I dread is like, let's see, okay, we have a full moon in Scorpio next month, maybe. We also have a Venus retrograde. It's going to be between Libra and Scorpio. So, part of my mind was like, does that mean it's going to continue till October? I can hope not. But we are going to have something change in the economy. I'm telling you, we're going to. Now, is the rush with gold and silver over? No, no. The other theory is one thing I am studying at the moment is, just because a transit moves out of the zodiac sign, it doesn't mean that it's over, i.e., Uranus leaving Taurus. It's changed. Or there could be different ways we're doing it, or it could be, you know, adios amigos. You know what I mean? I I would say even by new moon in Taurus. I'm looking at things more from a long-term point of view. And, like I said, I grapple with it because I am more earth mother kind of girl. So looking at precious metals as, a security blanket, in one way it's like it's catch 22. Do you do such, because you want to give back to the environment and then you like sustaining life, you're looking at the opposite side. So in the long term, I do see that it could make people rich. It could. Okay. Would I go for instant gratification and sell it? No, I'd probably keep it there. I on the level of silver, I would keep it there to beyond 2033 as your backup plan. Okay. As your backup plan. I'll give you more details later, and I'll be mentioning half of these things in the members. I've had a lot of transitions I've been going through at the moment because I've had an injured foot and, trying to get that on the mend. So at some point, that information will be shared because we have created an economic room. We'll be having discussions, looking at our charts, seeing how those are aspecting in each person's chart, and having a chat about some of the transits. Till Yeah. Yeah, the only reason I mention that is because there's a particular transit and it's so weird. We're gonna have a real weird ride on this. So if you want to join us with this weird ride and you're aware of it, you're not gonna be dumbfounded. You're gonna be sort of in the notion of, this is happening for a reason. The transformation is happening for a reason. We are gonna have for the next 10 years Pluto out of bounds, which can bring huge innovation and change and a bit of rebellion and out of the box thinking. And yeah, it can be sort of like uprisings and things like that. But so that's around, I believe the next date is around August. So Pluto will be going retrograde. We'll have a bit of introspection about that. We'll be looking at Some people, I've heard people talking about, oh, I want to go to the mines. And I'm like, well, I'm a bit on the fence about that because we could have a 2008 moment. Now, could it be different on this occasion? I have to be open-minded and say, yes, it possibly could be. But I still do believe we're going to have a dip. We are going to have a dip when it comes to the housing market because Jupiter will exit Cancer by about June. So, would you go for broke right now? I wouldn't. Um, mm, what is the value of that going to be? We don't know. And it's a hard one because if you were needing to find accommodation, you don't really have a choice in some ways. Do you know what I mean? But on the secondary nature, it's like, what is the value of that going to be? And can you sustain that if you don't have a job? That's something that, you might want to be looking at, and talking to a professional about that. So it's hard. If you were to pause, you could set yourself up even better. Do you get what I'm saying? It's hard. It's like, how do you do that? Go stay with family, go stay with friends if you have it, i.e. And I cannot, you know, I empathize. There is a lot of people at the moment that maybe are doing really great, but there is going to be a lot of people that at the moment are really going, oh crap. We've had a lot of transitions with those that are working in, nurses and doctors and bookkeepers this year. And yes, in the next 6 months, even in the banking system, because Virgo is banking. Virgo is, it's hospitals, it's the medical field, it's Medicare, it's data, what the data is. Data that was there before, data that's changed now. So we're transitioning it. What's happening with data at the moment? It's going through the algorithm. It's being streamed through the algorithm. Our blogs, how we do our blogs, it's now being caught and used by ChatGPT, and we're grappling with how do we deal with that? How do we still become relevant, but on the other side of it, protect our physical assets so we're not physically replaced? And the crazy thing is, if all of us are to be replaced, there's nobody paying for this shit. What are they getting it from thin air? Like, this is a fine line of an ecosystem. So it's what we give permission to. It's what we're going to show up to build. They're going to need people to build it. They're going to need people to finance it. So is employment over? No, no. Like, who's paying for this? Who's you talk about taxpayers, but if the taxpayers aren't getting paid and they're not getting any jobs, well, how are they going to pay for it? So where's this coming from? Out of your butt. You know what I mean? So I call bullshit. I call bullshit on this. Unless we go into, and I remember Leonardo DiCaprio movie where he didn't want to do the career and he faked being somebody that he wasn't, changed his fingerprints and all the rest of it so he could go out and live his destiny. You know the movie I'm talking about? He pretended to get into a different, ecosystem. You get my gist. But it was almost like people were allocated based on their intellect, their DNA, a career, which could that be a possibility? Possible. Anything right now can be a possibility, I'm telling you. Could we have some exposures next month? 100%. They usually come through the month before. But we could be talking about recession. We could be talking about there could be an exposure or an affair of some description between now and next month. Debt, taxes. Oh, cracking cold cases. Yeah, because Scorpio can be that too. Hmm. Moon, Scorpio. Oh, yeah. I won't say that in public. I'll put that on my blog. Anyway, I will love you and leave you. Feel free to, put your comment up. If you got a question, put a question. If you got something to share with others, what is your opinion? Are you prepared, for just general the future. And that's what I'm talking about here. I'm not like, oh my gosh, things are going pear-shaped. Yes, they fucking are. But this is, you know, this is your bell. This is for you to push your time into your hopes and dreams and aspirations. It's for you to care for your health. It's for you to pivot and have yourself really looking at the world in a different way at this point in time because it's not going back to the way it was before. It's changing and evolving. So, are there slight things you can do to, help you? Yes, I do believe there is. With some things obviously at a larger level later on down the track, maybe not. But right now you can actually start making some changes. It could be I mean, I lived on a farm, and if you, be it you want to agree with me or not, living on a farm, there are basics that people use to preserve. You should know how to make vinegar. You should have salt and sugar. They're essentials for preserving certain things. Now, in our modern world, how we have used them is not the healthiest way, but in traditional preserving styles, a lot of these products were needed. Your herbs and spices. You're running for the food aisles. Do you have any seeds? Do you keep seeds? Do you plant your spring onions into your garden when you have them home, or do you just discard them? Are you having your backup things there? What do you do to actually become more sustainable so that you're getting that actual cost down and you're actually having yourself use your things and not waste your things? I mean, I have how many olive trees? I was actually chatting to my husband the other day. When my father passed, because he was from Europe, I purchased an olive tree and it became a trend in the family because olive was notorious for peace. It was also based on the country he came from. And so the house we are living at the moment, they have this beautiful tree down the bottom. And I've spent some time caring for the trees, but I added in an extra one, two, three. We have five olive trees on the property. So down the bottom, this tree's actually done quite well. And there were some olives that I'd grabbed, and I'm basically preparing them now. So there's probably about a whole bucket. Mandarins, had heaps of mandarins, had heaps of blood oranges. I'm like, what the crap am I going to do with all these blood oranges? I don't want to waste them. So I made a cordial, like sort of like a syrup that you can put in a spritzer. You could turn them into ice cubes for sparkling water. Made jam. Had quince paste. I made my quince jelly, although I swear it needs to be more sugar, but I'm down for it the way it is. Uh, Glaced, what do you call them? Angela, what do you call them? They're the um, oranges that are sliced and dried, glaced oranges. So I can use them for cocktails, yeah, or just eat them like that. I swear I so need a food dehydrator. I had to do in the oven, and my husband was getting high on orange fumes. The whole house, all it smelt like was orange, blood orange. So I think I managed getting quince paste, cordial, jam, and some orange segments that you can use in your food or cocktails or just eat them as. Now, would I put them on the Christmas tree? No, I couldn't because they have sugar on them. Yeah, and look, I don't want to waste. I think that's the thing I'm trying to reference with what is happening right now. When I lived on the farm, we didn't waste anything. We used everything. So, you would go all the way. We didn't eat a lot of meat in Europe because during the previous recession we had, um, meat was a luxury. We would eat that on the farm once a week, and the meat we sold was actually for profit. It was for living expenses. It was too expensive. So you again, I have mentioned with the Scorpio placement there, with Saturn and Neptune and Aries. we're going to have subjects to do with mate coming up. So, with Venus going retrograde in that area, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like, and I've been keeping an eye on it. I'm watching. I'm like, is some shit gonna pop off? Like, and what could that look like? Oh, I have looked to the astrology for anything relating to a bloodborne disease. Um, I think back then we had mad cow. I've also been looking to breakthroughs with AIDS, concern about Ebola, but again, it's more, I think there's going to be in the retrograde, if you're going to get your produce, get it well and truly before September. And then from there on, just wait and do your purchases the following year if possible. And the only reason I say that is because we're going to have a Venus retrograde in Scorpio. It's going to move between two signs, but there could be something funky going on with it by that stage. Now, can it manifest early? Yeah, we could see signs of it between now and next month. I did come across one video where in a particular country, and it could be for a particular reason, that they're actually killing cows. So is it a slight sign? Potentially. But yeah, look, what happened with Saturn and Pisces? We had moments where we could have eggs and then moments we couldn't. So it could be a similar situation. Do you grasp what I'm saying? So as to the Aries related subjects, Saturn's there for 3 years. I mean, we have it and then we don't. Then there's a restriction and there's heaps of it. I mean, we would have, yeah, there's rain. And then it's like, oh, yeah, there's no rain. And I went, yeah, I'm sorry. Saturn's gone retrograde. The floodgates are opening. And then I'm like, no, it's not raining. And then they look at me and go, why is it raining? Because Saturn went retrograde. The floodgates are coming. So you want to watch those retrogrades. Okay. Be careful around your house. Check your smoke alarms. Don't be throwing cigarettes on the floor. Be careful around your sharp objects. Put them away from children. It's there for 3 years. Don't rush and drive, especially this month. Especially this month. Drive bloody carefully. If you have a particular placement, you even doubly need to be careful. I mean, I have, like I said, in Mercury, I've got it there, like in the third house. Um, and I literally grated myself on a Glad wrap box. I've sliced my finger up, and I'm not even driving now. Like, and it's just, I went like that, and my husband's going, "What's wrong with you?" And I went, "I just grated my finger on a Glad wrap box. Like, things are gonna happen, so it's just be doubly careful. You can burn yourself, you can cut yourself, you can just blow your top for no reasons. It's like calm down, calm down, calm down." Yeah, yeah. So look. Your seeds, your tomato seeds. Like I'm glad I've been gardening for years and I'm still learning. Whatever you do, be careful of your potatoes. And many of us probably don't know this. Some pets, if you have a pet that eats certain things, keep that pet away from your vegetable garden. What did I have planted? Something as simple as I think it was, yeah, butternut pumpkin. You guys probably call it squash. Uh, so I had that growing, and my dog would throw up, and I was like, "What's going on with that?" Oh, I Googled it, and it's just got to the point that when you do actually your research, there is a lot of plants that animals should not be around. And look, it's not she would go near it to. It wasn't I wasn't concerned about doo-doos or anything like that. She does her thing, but it was more from their health perspective of Is the leaf toxic? Is the plant toxic? Can they eat that in their diet? So rhubarb, for instance, you don't want to have that around your animals. Uh, you've then got your squash, the actual leaf is very, it's going to completely poison them, but it's going to irritate their gut to the point that they're going to vomit. So she just kept being sick, and I was like, got a bit of PTSD. I'm like, oh my God, don't tell me it's parvo, but allocated the pathogen, the thing that was messing with her, and I had to remove her. I have actually effectively removed it, and it continued growing, which I have a bit of a green thumb, but yeah, so I've just really had to isolate her away from my garden so I don't have to worry about it. Potatoes are the same. You can't grow certain things around animals. It's just not it's not great for them. When it comes to your composting, don't keep your compost close to your house. Like you're gonna attract rats. Even in your vegetable garden, you want it away from where you are planting things. You don't want to be putting that compost heap right next to your vegetable patch because you're going to attract rodents into it regardless. You want to kind of let them go over there, if that makes sense. I don't know. What do you feel, Angela? Is that about some of it? Is that what you would do? My husband knows my friendship with Angela is that, we're the garden gurus. We always chat. And I had a rodents get into my chicken coop at one stage. I don't have any chickens at the moment. They passed. They were old. They've retired. They were my rescue chickens from a daycare centre that was moving. So I took these chickens on and they retired here. But I have a lot of very small chicken wire mesh on it, and those buggers got in there. My husband and I had to get in there to eliminate them, not the chickens. And I tell you, so the next thing will be to actually put a cement border in there at the base because it does have mesh on the floor, but it's around the base they got under the sheets. Create a wall. Ah. Okay, anyway, so from a Jupiter point of view, you can have a bit more growth and, great for organic matter. I would say if you can delay a bit in the planting, you're probably going to have a bumper crop. Should you get them in the ground? Yeah, you should. If you're concerned about temperature, I would say check the garden at the moment for pests because we've got the movement of the two. But I would say plants are going to grow quite well. You're going to have a 6-month window. Weather environments are going to be what to watch for. So if you can actually get some protective covers for your gardens and some backup of, you know, if rain or something comes about, you want to know that that's buffered. So I would say have a backup of staggering things because we're going to have the conjunction point of Saturn and Neptune. So what is going on in the Middle East, we won't know completely yet. But again, when anything goes stagnant, there's the flow-on effect. So we can see some of those problems a little bit further down the track where there can be some delays in things. The other is from a weather point of view, Uranus will move into Gemini. We can have interesting weather patterns. We can have spikes in temperature. With we're having 3 lunations next month. Those directly can show great for organic matter in the garden. And don't waste a lot of money at the moment. And this woman was actually saying save your money, have your resources, just have your resources on hand. If saving your money where you should be putting it onto your bills a bit to get them ahead. That gives you the window, not having the cash on hand. If you've got the fuel in your tank and you've got some basic essentials, and your bills are slightly ahead, that's about the gist of it. Mm. Uh, Yeah, I do think we could also have something to do with paper coming up. Paper, wine. I would say probably intensifying more as we get to May, because the North Node is going to be moving. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. This was non-scripted. I just wanted to come on and have a chat about, some of our perspectives, and that maybe we could be looking at videos and getting a bit scared and going, what are we actually dealing with right now? A lot of you are going to have a bit more energy. It's going to spike up where you are going to have some more energy and motivation, and maybe your intellect is going to be more assertive and positive. Some of the zodiac signs are really experiencing it quite tough at the moment. And, if you have got really tired, we did have a lot of spikes in the Schumann, but we are integrating this new vibration of Aries. So Aries is go, go, go. And I'm like, oh man, I am so tired. I don't even know how to go, go, go. But I'm staying positive and realizing that with Aries, more than likely we're gonna have we'll have the vitality to do it, but don't bite off more than you can chew. Try and pace yourself based on your, abilities and limits. And Rome isn't built in a day. So just try and be patient with yourself as you're, moving towards your goals. Look at the long term. When you're deciding things, does this serve me in the long term? That's sudden because it wants maturity. What is the maturing cycle of this? Where will this go? Yeah. So you're going to feel different next month. Keep moving through this. As you're moving through this month, your energy's going to, come up and over a hill. Can we come up against some challenges? Yes. Challenges are, they're life-defining moments. We talk about this as being a month where you can plant seeds. I think the intention is there. I do believe most of those seeds are going to be planted next month. Now, does it mean don't start now? I would say start, but small, little movements moving forward. If you have huge vitality, jump in, get things done. But pace yourself because you're definitely going to need it. I'm going to love you and leave you. If you need a booking, you can go to the website. Some of the schedule is going to be closed down because I'll be going to appointments. But most of it is there. The other thing is I'll be looking at the membership about, how we can actually get those things ready inside there, and we will have updates in the members